Christy, I'd like to comment on that just a little bit as well, because I was quite involved.
Oh, there's a shocker.
Quite involved in this matter as Attorney General, and the case you're referring to involved a fellow named Allan Schoenborn, I believe. And yes, there was considerable public interest and angst, and I think there are two underlying currents. One was that many members of the public felt that they had heard, even though they hadn't, but they thought they understood that Mr. Schoenborn had actually been released. And in fact, the review board recommended that he be detained, ordered that he be detained, but delegated the decision-making authority to the treating psychiatrist at Colony Farms the option of allowing him temporary escorted absence sometime in the next 12 months, but only if the treating psychiatrist determined that his mental state had stabilized to such an extent that an escorted absence for a few hours wouldn't pose an undue risk to the public. That was the decision, but I think many members of the public didn't quite hear it that way. They heard that he had been released, or at least that's what they thought they'd heard. I had people stop me on the street and tell me that that's what they believed had actually happened. And then the other underlying current, I think, is that many people just don't believe that Mr. Schoenborn actually was mentally ill sufficiently at the time that he committed those horrendous offenses to actually qualify him for being found not criminally responsible by way of a mental illness. And I think there is a large current in the population that just doesn't accept that that's a reason not to be held criminally responsible. But for more than 200 years in our parliamentary system or in the Commonwealth, it's been recognized that if you're so sufficiently mentally ill as not to appreciate the nature and quality of your acts, then you're not to be determined to be criminally responsible, because the key element of a criminal conviction is mens rea, the mental element. And if you don't have the mental element, then in our justice system, you can't be found criminally responsible, but you can still be detained to protect the public. So looking at what happened, and after talking to the mother of the 3 children, I met with her in their kitchen for a few hours. I am satisfied that they have good reason to be concerned about Mr. Schoenborn still. And I think that within the protections of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and understanding that mental illness is a serious issue, there still is some room to straighten out some of the provisions in the Criminal Code, 672 of the Criminal Code in particular, to give greater protection to victims and the public, and give them a greater sense of security while still protecting those that have a mental illness.
Thank you, Barry.